The first strike is never random. It is rehearsed. It is calculated. And by the time the prey realizes it has been separated, the outcome is already sealed. A seal bursts from the water in blind panic, twisting mid-air as black and white shapes slice upward beneath it. The ocean around it is silent, too silent, until the surface erupts in perfect coordination. One orca drives from below. Another blocks escape. A third waits wide, not chasing, not rushing, simply holding position like a chess piece placed several moves in advance. This is not a feeding frenzy. This is a controlled dismantling. Orcas do not overwhelm by chaos. They dismantle by structure. Beneath the surface, their coordination begins long before contact. The pod spreads out, not tightly clustered but deliberately spaced. Acoustic clicks pulse outward in controlled bursts, mapping not just the prey, but the prey's escape routes. Orcas do not see the ocean the way other predators do. Through echolocation, they perceive distance, density, even the internal mass of animals ahead of them. They detect weakness not by sight alone, but by echo texture. A thin blubber layer reflects differently than a thick one. A tired seal swims with micro-variations in stroke rhythm that betray exhaustion. The pod identifies vulnerability before the chase even begins. The first objective is separation. Prey survive in groups because confusion protects them. A school, a herd, a colony, all are biological strategies built around dilution of risk. Orcas understand this instinctively. They do not charge the mass, they fracture it. Two individuals flank wide, accelerating just enough to compress the group. The prey instinctively bunch together, tightening formation. That is the trap. A third orca surges through the middle, not targeting yet, simply driving panic. In that moment of compression, one weaker individual drifts half a body length too far from the cluster. That slight misalignment is enough. The pod pivots instantly. Now the focus narrows. The group becomes irrelevant. Only the isolated individual matters. This tactic is repeated across ecosystems. In polar waters, when hunting seals on ice floes, orcas create coordinated waves. Several individuals swim in formation, accelerating in synchronized strokes to generate a surge that tips the ice platform. The seal, built for traction on solid ground, suddenly finds itself submerged, disoriented, alone. The pod waits below. The goal is not brute force. The goal is environmental manipulation. In open ocean, the same principle applies to schooling fish. Instead of chasing randomly, orcas herd fish into tight bait balls, compressing them into dense spheres near the surface. Then comes the tail strike. An orca slaps the school with the full force of its fluke, stunning dozens at once. But even here, roles rotate. One stuns. Another consumes. Another patrols the perimeter. No energy is wasted. No movement overlaps unnecessarily. They do not fight fair. They fight efficiently. Rotation is critical. Unlike solitary predators, orcas distribute fatigue. During prolonged chases, attackers swap positions fluidly. The lead pursuer falls back before exhaustion sets in. A fresh individual surges forward, maintaining pressure. This preserves speed and precision across longer hunts. It is endurance through cooperation, not individual stamina. This rotation is not chaotic. It is learned. Young orcas are not born knowing these patterns. They are trained into them. Calves shadow adults during hunts, positioned safely at the edges while observing each maneuver. Mothers sometimes deliberately disable prey without killing it, allowing calves to practice biting, flipping, and drowning techniques. This is not cruelty for spectacle. It is instruction. Skill transfer in orcas is cultural. Hunting strategies vary between pods because they are passed down socially, not genetically hardwired in identical form. Some pods specialize exclusively in fish. Others hunt marine mammals. Certain Antarctic populations focus on seals using wave wash techniques. In parts of the Pacific, transient orcas specialize in hunting sharks. These groups display one of the most precise examples of targeted anatomical exploitation in the animal kingdom. When attacking large sharks, including great whites, They do not attempt prolonged combat. They invert the shark. A coordinated strike flips the shark upside down, inducing tonic immobility, a temporary paralysis response. Once immobilized, the orca bites precisely behind the pectoral fins, accessing the liver. The shark liver is enormous, rich in lipids, and calorically dense. It fuels buoyancy and metabolism. Orcas remove it with surgical efficiency, often leaving the rest of the carcass largely untouched. This is not random feeding. It is selective harvesting of the most energy-rich organ available. This targeting reveals something deeper: anatomical intelligence. Orcas understand weak points. They strike seals from below because the belly is softer than the spine. They ram whales at angles that disrupt breathing cycles. When harassing large baleen whales, pods coordinate to separate calves from mothers, focusing attacks on the smaller individual. The goal is not immediate kill, but exhaustion. Large whales drown when forced into prolonged submergence or when unable to surface efficiently to breathe. The ocean becomes a three-dimensional battlefield where depth, air access, and spatial positioning matter more than raw strength. Their communication during these hunts remains largely silent to outside observers. Orcas reduce vocalizations when hunting mammals to avoid alerting prey with sound. Acoustic discipline is part of the strategy. When targeting fish, they are louder. When targeting mammals with acute hearing, they become quiet. They modulate behavior based on prey sensory capabilities. This adaptability is rare among predators. Even more unsettling is their capacity for strategic deception. In some regions, orcas have been observed creating disturbances that appear accidental, surface splashes or erratic movements that flush prey toward hidden pod members. The prey believes it is escaping danger when it is actually being guided into a corridor of death. What seems like improvisation is often pre-planned geometry. There is hierarchy in execution, but not dictatorship. Older females often lead, especially matriarchs with decades of accumulated ecological memory. They remember migration routes, seasonal prey abundance, and even historical patterns of prey decline. This long-term memory shapes hunting timing and location. Knowledge persists across generations. The ocean changes. Orcas adjust. When prey numbers drop in one region, pods shift territories. When seals alter haul-out patterns, orcas modify wave timing. In some coastal areas, they have learned to steal fish from longlines without being hooked, stripping catches with minimal risk. They observe, they adapt, they refine, and they are patient. Unlike sharks, which rely on rapid ambush bursts, orcas can sustain complex hunts that last hours. They harass, withdraw, re-engage. They test prey stamina. They probe for weakness. Every phase serves a purpose. Energy economics governs the operation. A failed attack is not a random loss. It is recalibration. The most chilling aspect is that they understand cooperation not as chaos, but as architecture. Each individual functions like a moving part in a living machine. They anticipate each other's movements. They adjust spacing dynamically. There is no visible signal for rotation. It flows organically, suggesting predictive cognition. Their brains are among the largest in the animal kingdom relative to body size. The neocortex is highly convoluted, supporting complex social processing. This neural infrastructure underpins their coordination. Strategy requires foresight. Foresight requires modeling outcomes. Orcas appear capable of anticipating prey responses and positioning accordingly. This transforms the hunt from reflex to calculation. Even dominance among themselves reflects control rather than brutality. Aggression within pods is rare compared to the precision of their external attacks. Their violence is directed outward with focus, not inward with chaos. Yet this sophistication has consequences beyond immediate prey. When orcas eliminate sharks from certain coastal zones, ecological cascades follow. Sharks regulate mid-level predators. Remove sharks, and mesopredator populations shift. That alters fish distribution. That reshapes reef health. The orca's targeted strike at a shark liver can ripple outward into entire food web dynamics. They are not simply hunters, they are architects of marine balance. But there is another twist. Despite their dominance, they are not invincible. Their strategies depend entirely on social cohesion. A fragmented pod loses efficiency. A lost matriarch can mean lost migratory memory. Noise pollution disrupts echolocation precision. Overfishing alters prey landscapes. The same intelligence that makes them formidable also makes them dependent on cultural continuity. Their strength lies not in individual power, but in collective planning. The final image lingers in cold water at dusk. A pod surfaces in synchronized breaths, exhaling mist into the fading light. Beneath them, the ocean holds silence again. The execution is complete. There was no frenzy, no wasted motion, only isolation, rotation, targeting, and inherited knowledge playing out with surgical calm. They did not overpower the sea. They organized it. And in that organization lies the true apex. The fish have already lost. They just do not know it yet. In shallow coastal water, a single dolphin begins to spin. Not fast, not frantic, controlled. Its tail beats the sea floor in tight circles, carving the sand into a rising curtain. The water clouds. Sediment lifts into a thick, expanding wall. The dolphin continues its rotation with surgical precision, tightening the circle, sealing the perimeter. Inside that ring, fish compress instinctively, fleeing inward from the choking silt. Then the surface explodes. One by one, the trapped fish leap upward, choosing air over the suffocating enclosure below. And as they break the surface, dolphins surge from beneath, mouths open at the exact exit points they predicted seconds earlier. The fish do not escape the trap. They launch themselves directly into it. This is not opportunistic feeding. It is environmental engineering. Mud-ring feeding is a behavior documented in certain populations of bottlenose dolphins, particularly along shallow coastlines where fine sediment can be manipulated. Only one dolphin needs to create the ring, but it is rarely alone. Others position themselves just outside the perimeter, anticipating the panic response of the fish within. The ring is not random. Its diameter is calculated by experience. Too large and the fish escape. Too small and the energy cost outweighs the gain. The dolphin spinning in the sediment is not simply chasing prey. It is constructing a temporary prison. What makes this tactic extraordinary is not merely the coordination, but the predictive understanding of fish behavior. Dolphins do not physically block every escape path. They exploit instinct. Fish confronted with murky water and constricted space instinctively bolt upward toward clear water and oxygen. The dolphins are not reacting to that decision. They are triggering it. They are manipulating the prey's own survival reflex. But mud rings are only one expression of a larger pattern. Dolphins across different regions have developed multiple methods of shaping the environment to corner prey. In open ocean, where there is no seabed to disturb, pods shift tactics. Instead of sediment, they use speed and formation. A school of fish appears fluid and unified, a shimmering cloud that seems impossible to penetrate. Yet dolphins approach not from a single direction, but from several vectors simultaneously. They do not strike immediately. They tighten. By swimming in coordinated arcs, dolphins compress the school inward. Each pass reduces the radius. The fish begin to overlap and collide. Confusion intensifies. The school that once relied on synchronized movement fractures under pressure. Soon the mass condenses into a tight sphere near the surface, a bait ball. The surface becomes a ceiling. The dolphins become walls. And then comes the barrage. Individuals charge through the bait ball in calculated bursts, snapping sideways, stunning fish with forceful tail swipes, then circling back for additional passes. Some dolphins specialize in high-speed penetration, others in perimeter control. The roles are fluid, shifting as needed. The entire operation resembles a living net woven from muscle and sonar. But the most striking revelation is that dolphins do not merely coordinate, they communicate in real time during the hunt. Rapid acoustic bursts, Whistles and body positioning act as signals. The pod maintains cohesion even when visibility drops. Their echolocation pulses do more than locate prey. They map pod members too, preventing collisions and maintaining formation integrity. The ocean becomes an architectural space, shaped by sound. And yet, there is a deeper layer to this manipulation. In Shark Bay, Australia, a subset of dolphins carries tools. Females in particular have been observed breaking off marine sponges and fitting them over their rostrums. With this sponge shield in place, they probe the seafloor for hidden prey buried in sand. The sponge protects the delicate skin around the snout from abrasion and sting. This is not instinctual behavior universal to all dolphins. It is culturally transmitted. Calves learn by shadowing their mothers. Only certain lineages practice it. The technique persists through social teaching, not genetic mutation. This reveals something critical. Dolphins do not simply react to their environment. They modify their interface with it. Tool use is rare among marine predators. The underwater world offers fewer rigid objects for manipulation compared to terrestrial habitats. Yet dolphins identify a problem, injury risk while probing for prey, and solve it with an external implement. The sponge becomes an extension of their anatomy. It transforms a vulnerable nose into a reinforced instrument. But sponging comes at a cost. Dolphins using this method forage alone more often, diving deeper and longer than group hunting individuals. They sacrifice social feeding opportunities for specialized gain. This is not brute efficiency. It is strategic trade-off. The pod is not uniform. It contains specialists. Another twist emerges when observing dolphins interacting with prey that possess defensive adaptations. Certain fish emit distress signals when attacked. Dolphins sometimes exploit this signal intentionally. By injuring one fish within a school and allowing it to release chemical or acoustic alarm cues, dolphins may amplify panic within the group, accelerating bait ball formation. What appears like accidental chaos may in fact be induced cascade. Manipulation operates at multiple sensory levels: visual, acoustic, chemical. Even more unsettling is the observation that dolphins sometimes use cooperative mud plumes beyond circular rings. In some cases, multiple individuals kick sediment in parallel lines, effectively creating corridors that guide fish toward shallow dead ends. The dolphins are not merely enclosing, they are funneling. The environment itself becomes a moving boundary. Biologically, this capacity stems from several converging traits. Dolphins possess high encephalization quotients, meaning their brain size relative to body mass is among the highest in the animal kingdom. The neocortex is deeply folded, supporting complex social processing and predictive modeling. Their echolocation system allows detailed spatial imaging in low visibility. Their social structure fosters long-term learning and information transfer. Together, these elements produce something rare in predators: cultural engineering. Different dolphin populations exhibit entirely different hunting repertoires. In some regions, dolphins cooperate with human fishermen, herding fish toward nets and signaling when to cast. In others, they strand themselves briefly on beaches to snatch fish in tidal shallows before wriggling back into deeper water. These behaviors are not universal. They are localized traditions. Culture shapes the hunt. This challenges a simplistic view of predators as purely instinct-driven machines. Dolphins refine techniques across generations. They innovate within constraints. They adapt strategies to geography. But the manipulation extends beyond prey. Dolphins also coordinate against competitors. In some ecosystems, they harass sharks collectively, driving them away from feeding zones. By approaching in tight groups and using coordinated body slaps, they present a unified front that deters solitary rivals. This is not a fight for immediate food, but for territorial advantage. The engineered hunt becomes engineered dominance. Yet there is a paradox beneath the efficiency. Dolphins appear playful, social, almost gentle in human imagination. They ride bow waves, interact curiously with boats, and display synchronized leaps. But beneath that charisma lies a predator, capable of orchestrated control. The same intelligence that fosters social bonding also facilitates lethal design. The hunt is not fueled by frenzy. It is guided by anticipation. Each mud ring, each bait ball compression, each sponge-assisted probe reflects foresight. Dolphins anticipate the physics of water flow, the panic reflex of fish, the abrasion of sand, the response of podmates. They calculate energy expenditure versus caloric return. They shift roles seamlessly without visible command. This level of coordination transforms them from mere hunters into ecosystem shapers. By concentrating fish schools, they influence distribution patterns. By targeting specific prey species, they alter competitive balances within coastal waters. Their repeated manipulation of shallow habitats stirs sediment layers, redistributing nutrients. Even their foraging techniques ripple outward. The final image settles in quiet water as sediment drifts back to the seabed. The mud ring dissolves. The surface smooths. The dolphins regroup, gliding in loose formation, breathing in slow synchrony. There is no visible trace of the architecture they built minutes earlier. No walls, no net, no tool left behind. Only the memory of a trap that existed briefly in motion. They did not overpower the fish by strength alone. They designed the moment, and in that design lies the true depth of their power. The crab thinks it has found safety. It backs into a narrow crevice in the reef, claws raised, body wedged tight against stone. There is only one entrance, only one visible threat. The crab faces it, prepared to strike. But the threat is no longer at the entrance. A pale arm slips silently along the outer rock face, flattening against the surface so perfectly that it becomes texture rather than flesh. Another arm follows from a different angle. A third reaches across the top, exploring the gap from above. Within seconds, every possible exit route is occupied by something soft, deliberate, and impossibly patient. The octopus does not rush. It closes the trap. Unlike most predators in the sea, the octopus does not dominate through speed or brute force. It dominates through geometry. It studies structure. It evaluates space. And then it rearranges it. The reef is not an obstacle to the octopus. It is a toolkit. As the crab holds its defensive posture, unaware of the silent encirclement, the octopus shifts its skin color from mottled brown to a rough stone pattern that mimics the surrounding coral. Chromatophores expand and contract across its body, altering not only color but texture. Papillae rise along its mantle, creating the illusion of rock fragments. It is not simply hidden. It is erased. The crab cannot defend against what it cannot locate. Then comes the decisive move. One arm slides behind the crab and blocks the rear opening. Another presses downward from above. The remaining limbs funnel inward, sealing every gap. The crab's final lunge meets suction-lined muscle instead of open water. The octopus pulls it inward, beak already positioned at the precise seam between shell plates. The hunt ends without spectacle. But the real story is not the capture. It is the calculation that preceded it. The octopus operates with a distributed nervous system unlike any other predator in the ocean. More than half of its neurons reside in its arms rather than its central brain. Each limb possesses semi-autonomous control, capable of sensing, exploring, and manipulating independently. The result is not chaotic motion, but parallel processing. While one arm tests rock texture, another tastes chemical traces in the water, and a third probes for escape gaps. The octopus does not need to see every angle. It feels them simultaneously. This sensory intelligence transforms hunting into problem-solving. When approaching a burrowed fish, the octopus does not simply lunge. It positions itself above the den and seals the perimeter with its webbed arms, forming a living tent. If the fish bolts toward one side, it encounters a muscular wall. If it darts downward, it meets suction cups already waiting. The octopus adjusts mid-hunt, recalibrating based on the prey's reaction. The fight becomes a series of solved variables. In some coastal habitats, octopuses have been observed carrying coconut shells or discarded debris across the sea floor. At first glance, it appears absurd, an animal awkwardly transporting two halves of a shell beneath its body. But the purpose becomes clear when danger approaches. The octopus assembles the shells into a protective sphere, barricading itself inside. It has transported a portable shelter. Tool use underwater is rare. For an animal without bones, without a rigid skeleton, to carry and assemble armor is extraordinary. It requires foresight. The octopus gathers these materials not during immediate threat, but in anticipation of one. It plans for future danger. The same foresight appears during feeding. When faced with a bivalve too tightly sealed to pry open directly, the octopus does not abandon the attempt. It drills. Using its radula and specialized salivary secretions, it bores a small hole through the shell and injects venom that relaxes the prey's muscles. Once the shell slackens, it feeds at leisure. Force was never the goal. Access was. Venom in octopus species varies, but in many it is designed to paralyze rather than destroy tissue. This preserves the nutritional value of the prey. The bite is targeted with precision. The beak aligns with the thinnest shell region, often near hinge points or vulnerable seams. This is anatomical exploitation learned through repeated success, and yet the octopus does not rely solely on stealth. It can escalate when needed. Some species flatten their bodies and stretch their arms outward, mimicking toxic flatfish. Others rear up and extend contrasting color bands to appear larger and more threatening. The mimic octopus goes further, impersonating lionfish, sea snakes, and other venomous species depending on the predator encountered. Deception becomes survival currency. But the most chilling aspect of octopus intelligence emerges when circumstances shift unexpectedly. In controlled experiments and field observations, octopuses confronted with sealed containers housing prey have demonstrated remarkable adaptability. They twist lids, manipulate latches, and exploit mechanical weaknesses. They do not repeat failed strategies indefinitely. They adjust. They test alternatives. When a hunting approach fails in the wild, this adaptability translates into improvisation. If a fish escapes through an unblocked gap, the octopus remembers that spatial flaw. On the next attempt, that gap is sealed first. Learning is rapid. Memory is retained. It does not fight harder. It fights smarter. Its camouflage system adds another layer of strategic control. Octopus skin is not simply color-changing. It is dynamically expressive. Chromatophores expand in fractions of a second. Iridophores reflect ambient light, and leucophores scatter wavelengths to match brightness. The result is active background matching. But beyond matching, octopuses can generate disruptive patterns, high-contrast shapes that confuse predator or prey perception. When ambushing from disguise, the octopus often partially buries itself in sand, leaving only its eyes exposed. These eyes, with horizontal pupils, adjust to maintain sharp focus in varying light conditions. From this concealed vantage point, it waits. The strike is short, explosive, and guided by both sight and tactile input. Yet the true advantage lies in patience. Unlike many marine predators that depend on bursts of speed, the octopus can remain motionless for extended periods, conserving energy while assessing opportunity. It evaluates prey size relative to effort. It ignores unsuitable targets. It chooses selectively. Energy economics drives intelligence. There is also the paradox of vulnerability. The octopus has no rigid defense, no shell, no armor. Its soft body makes it susceptible to numerous predators, from sharks to moray eels. Its intelligence may have evolved precisely because of this vulnerability. Without physical protection, survival depended on behavioral complexity. In this sense, the octopus represents an evolutionary trade-off. Strength was abandoned in favor of cognition. Speed was secondary to strategy. Even its escape behavior reflects calculated decision-making. When threatened, it releases ink not randomly but directionally, forming a dense cloud that resembles its own body shape. This pseudomorph distracts predators, buying seconds for retreat. Simultaneously, jet propulsion launches the octopus backward, exploiting its flexible mantle cavity to generate thrust. The ink is not merely visual camouflage. It can contain chemicals that dull predator sensory perception. Defense is layered with chemistry and illusion. What makes the octopus particularly unsettling is the isolation of its intelligence. It is not social like dolphins. It does not hunt in coordinated pods like orcas. Its cognitive achievements occur alone, within a solitary framework. There is no cultural transmission across generations in most species. Each individual refines its own solutions within a relatively short lifespan. An intelligent predator without a social network. This independence sharpens the contrast. The octopus faces the reef as an individual problem solver in a complex, three-dimensional labyrinth. Every crevice is a puzzle. Every shell is a locked container. Every predator is a variable requiring adjustment. It survives not because it overpowers the system, but because it reads it. The closing scene unfolds at dusk. The reef dims into blue shadow. A small fish darts between coral heads, unaware of the slight shift in texture beside it. What appears to be rock flexes subtly. Arms extend from invisibility. The fish is enveloped before it registers movement. The reef returns to stillness. No roar, no chase, no dramatic collision. Only a mind operating beneath the surface, quietly solving the next equation. The octopus does not dominate through confrontation. It dominates through comprehension. The predator hesitates. A long, banded body glides across the sand, its arms stretched backward in perfect symmetry, undulating like a venomous sea snake. The coloration is precise. Alternating dark and pale stripes, high contrast against the muddy seabed. The posture is not random. The movement is deliberate, serpentine, toxic. The approaching fish slows. It recognizes danger. It turns away. But there is no sea snake here. As the threat withdraws, the striped body collapses inward. The arms fold, shorten, thicken. The pattern shifts again, morphing into the flared fins and broad profile of a lionfish. Moments later, the fins vanish. The arms tuck tightly beneath the mantle, and what remains resembles a flatfish skimming along the ocean floor. This is not camouflage. It is performance. The mimic octopus survives by deception so precise that it convinces predators it is something far more dangerous than itself. It does not merely change color to blend with sand or coral. It changes identity. It assumes the form, posture, and behavior of venomous animals that share its habitat, exploiting the learned fear embedded in other species. In shallow, silty waters of Southeast Asia, visibility is limited. Shapes matter more than fine detail. The mimic octopus manipulates this limitation. Its arms elongate to resemble sea snake bodies. Its mantle flattens to create the silhouette of toxic flatfish. Its skin patterns sharpen into bold warning stripes. These transformations are not cosmetic alone. They involve muscular restructuring of posture and coordinated limb positioning. The deception works because predators recognize patterns faster than they analyze them. Many reef predators rely on quick risk assessment. Venomous animals such as banded sea snakes and lionfish carry unmistakable high-contrast patterns signaling toxicity. The mimic octopus taps into this warning system. It borrows the reputation of species that inflict painful or lethal consequences. The genius lies in context. The mimic octopus does not randomly imitate any species. It selects forms based on the predator present. Observations suggest that when threatened by damselfish known to fear sea snakes, the octopus performs a sea snake impersonation. When confronted by larger predatory fish that avoid lionfish, it adopts the lionfish profile. This implies situational awareness. Unlike static camouflage species that evolve to resemble a single toxic model permanently, the mimic octopus can switch between multiple identities in seconds. Its chromatophores expand and contract to generate crisp banding patterns. Muscles within each arm alter stiffness and angle, creating convincing anatomical illusions. It does not simply look like another animal. It behaves like one. The undulating motion during sea snake mimicry matches the rhythmic propulsion of real serpents. The fin-like spreading during lionfish imitation recreates the hovering menace of venomous spines. The posture of a flatfish, with arms flattened and trailing, replicates the gliding drift of benthic species. Behavior completes the fraud. This capacity emerges from the same neural architecture that empowers octopus intelligence more broadly. A highly developed brain coordinates with semi-autonomous arms, each capable of independent movement, yet synchronized for cohesive performance. The mimic octopus must orchestrate all 8 limbs simultaneously, holding precise angles and tension to maintain the illusion. The deception is not passive. It is actively maintained. But the story does not end with predator avoidance. Deception also serves a fence. When stalking small fish, the mimic octopus may assume the shape of a harmless organism, drifting across the seabed without triggering alarm. Only at the final moment does it erupt from disguise, arms snapping inward around unsuspecting prey. The lie creates proximity. Proximity enables capture. The reef becomes a stage. Yet there is a deeper evolutionary paradox beneath this identity fraud. Why evolve such elaborate mimicry instead of venom or armor? The mimic octopus is relatively soft-bodied and lacks the potent toxins of sea snakes or lionfish. Instead of investing in chemical weaponry, it invests in cognitive and muscular flexibility. This is evolutionary efficiency through borrowing. Rather than developing its own costly venom system, it exploits the existing deterrence of others. It capitalizes on the fact that predators have already learned painful lessons from genuine toxic species. The mimic octopus inherits that reputation without paying the metabolic price of venom production. However, deception carries risk. If a predator tests the bluff and discovers the octopus lacks actual venom, the illusion fails catastrophically. For mimicry to remain effective, it must be rare enough that predators do not frequently encounter and expose it. This dynamic suggests that mimic octopus populations rely on ecological balance. Too many mimics, and the lie collapses. The survival strategy depends on probability. This creates a fascinating ecological interplay between model species and mimic. The presence of genuine venomous animals strengthens the mimic's survival odds. Remove the sea snakes or lionfish, and the mimic's borrowed identity loses power. In this way, its existence is intertwined with the very species it impersonates. The mimic does not dominate the ecosystem. It parasitizes perception. Another layer of sophistication appears when observing the octopus's decision-making during threat escalation. If camouflage suffices, it remains stone-like and still. If a predator approaches closer, it escalates to identity transformation. If cornered further, it may combine ink release with rapid jet propulsion. Each defense option is selected based on proximity and risk level. Defense is tiered. The mimic octopus does not default to one strategy. It evaluates distance, predator type, and available terrain. This implies rapid sensory integration and response calibration. Its eyes scan for movement. Its skin responds instantly to neural signals. Its arms adjust posture without hesitation. It survives by lying, but it lies selectively. There is something unsettling about this form of intelligence. Many animals camouflage to avoid being seen. Few adopt entirely different biological identities. The mimic octopus manipulates not only visual perception, but also cognitive expectation. It triggers the memory of pain within other species. In essence, it hacks the predator's brain. The final image unfolds in dim coastal water at dusk. A predatory fish glides over the seabed, scanning for movement. Ahead, a striped sea snake undulates lazily across the sand. The predator veers away, unwilling to risk venom. Moments later, the stripes dissolve. The snake condenses into a compact octopus form, arms retracting into anonymity. It resumes slow exploration, undetected and unharmed. No battle occurred. No strike was needed. The ocean remains quiet. It did not fight. It convinced the world it was something else. The shrimp should run. It is close enough to sense danger. Its antennae twitch. Its compound eyes register a shape hovering just beyond striking distance. Instinct says, flee. Muscles tense. Escape is milliseconds away. But instead of darting backward, the shrimp hesitates. Across from it, the cuttlefish begins to pulse. Dark bands ripple down its body in rhythmic waves, flowing from head to mantle like liquid shadow. Light and dark flash in alternating sequences, not randomly, but in perfectly timed intervals. The pattern intensifies, then softens, then intensifies again. The shrimp does not retreat. It stiffens. And in that suspended moment, when prey brain falters between decision and action, the cuttlefish strikes. Two feeding tentacles launch forward faster than the eye can track, tipped with suction discs that lock onto the shrimp's body. The prey is reeled inward and crushed by the beak before it ever completes its first escape flick. The attack was not just fast. It was neurologically timed. Cuttlefish are masters of visual language. Their skin is a living display screen, layered with chromatophores, iridophores, and leucophores that combine to create shifting colors, contrasts, and brightness gradients. Unlike octopuses, which often prioritize concealment, cuttlefish frequently weaponize visibility. The flashing patterns are not decorative. They are disruptive. Within the prey's nervous system, visual processing operates under tight evolutionary constraints. Many small crustaceans and fish rely on rapid pattern recognition to detect predators. Movement triggers escape. High-contrast flashes can signal threat. But the cuttlefish introduces something different: controlled oscillation. The rhythmic pulsing appears to overwhelm the prey's sensory filters. Research suggests that certain cephalopod displays create what scientists describe as motion dazzle effects. Rapid contrast shifts can distort a viewer's perception of distance and speed. For prey animals whose survival depends on split-second directional decisions, this distortion can be fatal. The brain attempts to track the moving bands across the cuttlefish's body, diverting attention from the actual forward creep of the predator. The prey becomes cognitively overloaded. This is not true hypnosis in the human sense, but it produces a similar outcome: a freeze response. Instead of executing a clean escape trajectory, the prey pauses, its neural circuits momentarily saturated. In predator-prey interactions, hesitation equals capture. The cuttlefish exploits that hesitation with surgical timing. Its body advances slowly during the flashing sequence, minimizing detection of actual approach speed. Its eyes, large and W-shaped in pupil structure, provide expansive field awareness. Each eye moves independently, allowing simultaneous tracking of prey and surrounding threats. The cuttlefish calculates distance continuously, adjusting position with subtle fin undulations that generate minimal turbulence. The hunt unfolds like a metronome. When the cuttlefish judges the distance optimal, it ceases the display abruptly. The sudden stop can itself disorient prey, which has adjusted to the rhythmic pulses. At that precise instant, elastic tentacles fire outward, propelled by muscular hydrostats capable of extraordinary acceleration. The tentacle clubs strike and retract in a fraction of a second, minimizing counterattack risk. The prey never regains agency. But flashing patterns are not used exclusively for hunting. Cuttlefish employ similar displays during competition and mating. Males can broadcast bold zebra-like stripes to intimidate rivals, while simultaneously projecting subdued coloration toward females on the opposite side of their body. Each half of the cuttlefish can display independently. This split signaling reveals a sophisticated control of skin expression. In the context of hunting, such independence allows micro-adjustments in pattern intensity based on prey reaction. If a shrimp begins to shift sideways, the pulsing bands can alter angle or frequency. The cuttlefish is not simply emitting light, it is reading feedback and modifying output. The display becomes interactive. Another twist emerges when considering environmental lighting. In murky coastal waters, high-contrast pulses travel differently through suspended particles. The cuttlefish adapts brightness to local conditions, ensuring its patterns remain visible enough to influence prey, but not so exaggerated as to alert larger predators. It balances aggression with caution. Despite its apparent confidence, the cuttlefish is vulnerable. It lacks a hard shell. Its internal cuttlebone provides buoyancy control but not armor. Its survival depends on choosing the right moment to reveal itself. Flash too early and prey flees. Flash too late and distance closes insufficiently for a clean strike. The success of the hunt lies in calibration. Cuttlefish can also modulate texture, raising small papillae to break up their outline or smoothing their skin for streamlined attack. Before initiating flashing displays, they often align their body to minimize silhouette against the substrate. The deception begins with blending in. Only once within effective range does the performance commence. Ambush and spectacle merge. There is a deeper neurological implication. The prey's freeze response may not stem solely from confusion. Many animals exhibit tonic immobility under overwhelming stimulus. The flashing bands could trigger stress pathways that momentarily override motor output. In this interpretation, the cuttlefish does not merely confuse, it induces a brief shutdown. Milliseconds determine life or death. The predator's brain must therefore synchronize visual display with tentacle mechanics perfectly. Launch too soon, and prey may still be mobile. Launch too late, and recovery begins. The cuttlefish times its strike at the peak of prey paralysis probability. Precision becomes predation. Even when hunts fail, learning appears rapid. Cuttlefish can adjust display frequency after unsuccessful attempts, suggesting behavioral plasticity. If one rhythm fails to freeze prey, another may be tested. This capacity for refinement underscores a larger pattern among cephalopods. Intelligence expressed through experimentation. They do not rely solely on inherited instinct. They iterate. Yet the most haunting element of the cuttlefish's strategy is its subtlety. There is no roaring charge, no dramatic chase. The prey stands motionless, seemingly calm, until impact. To an outside observer, the shrimp's stillness might appear voluntary. But within its neural circuitry, decision pathways have been disrupted. The predator manipulates perception itself. As dusk settles over the reef, a lone cuttlefish drifts above sandy bottom. A small crab scuttles nearby. The cuttlefish aligns its body, texture blending seamlessly with rippled sediment. Then the first pulse begins. Dark bands cascade forward, rolling like shadows cast by unseen waves. The crab hesitates. Its claws lift halfway. It does not retreat. The display intensifies, then vanishes. The tentacles fire. Silence returns to the seabed. The cuttlefish does not overpower its prey with strength. It intervenes at the level of the brain.
The worm dances in open water. It twitches. It curls. It pulses in tiny, irresistible spasms just above a patch of coral rubble. To a passing juvenile fish, it looks like an easy meal. Soft, defenseless, exposed. The fish angles closer, adjusting its fins for a precise snap. The worm jerks again, almost clumsy, almost careless. The fish lunges, and the coral explodes. What appeared to be a rock splits open into a cavernous mouth. Water vanishes in a violent inward rush. The fish does not even register teeth. It disappears whole. The worm is gone too, retracting instantly as the coral rock closes again, motionless, inert, innocent. The hunt lasted less than the blink of an eye. The frogfish does not chase prey. It convinces prey to approach the execution site willingly. Unlike sleek pelagic hunters, the frogfish is built like a lump. Its body is round, textured, often mottled in colors that mirror the surrounding reef. Some resemble sponges, others encrusted rocks, algae clumps, or coral heads. Its skin is layered with dermal flaps and filaments that scatter light irregularly, breaking up outline and shadow. Even experienced divers overlook it. To prey animals scanning for motion, it is part of the landscape. But perched above its gaping mouth is the true instrument of deception, a modified dorsal spine called the elysium, tipped with a fleshy lure known as the esker. This appendage is not passive decoration. It is a specialized fishing rod. The lure moves independently of the body, controlled by delicate musculature. It can flick, pulse, wiggle, or twitch in ways that mimic small worms, crustaceans, or injured fish depending on species. Some frogfish possess lures shaped like shrimp. Others resemble ragged worms. A few species even adjust lure coloration to match local prey preferences. The frogfish does not simply wait. It performs. The performance must be precise,
Too much motion and suspicion arises. Too little, and the bait goes unnoticed. The lure typically moves within a narrow arc just beyond the frogfish's mouth, positioned exactly where an approaching fish must align itself for a clean strike. This is spatial engineering. The frogfish's mouth is one of the fastest mechanical systems in the ocean. Its jaw expansion relies on rapid buccal cavity enlargement, creating an explosive suction force. When triggered, the mouth opens in a fraction of a second, expanding to a diameter far greater than the frogfish's resting face suggests possible. The water in front of it is sucked inward so violently that prey are engulfed before muscle contraction signals can fire. The prey does not get bitten. It gets inhaled. Inside that vacuum, backward-pointing teeth prevent escape. The frogfish's stomach can stretch to accommodate prey nearly equal to its own size. What appears like an immobile blob is capable of swallowing fish half its body length in a single gulp. But the deception begins long before the strike. Frogfish rarely swim in traditional fashion. Instead, they walk along the seafloor using modified pectoral fins that function like limbs. This locomotion allows subtle repositioning without creating disruptive water currents that might alert prey. They choose vantage points strategically, near coral edges, along rubble slopes, beside sponge outcrops, locations where small fish naturally forage. Positioning determines opportunity. And yet, the frogfish does not attempt to lure every fish that passes. It appears selective. Energy conservation is essential for an ambush predator that may wait hours between successful strikes. When prey size is too large or angle imperfect, the lure remains still. Patience governs the system. There is a deeper psychological layer to this deception. Many small reef fish are hardwired to investigate erratic movements, particularly those resembling injured organisms. An injured worm or crustacean signals easy calories. The frogfish exploits this opportunistic instinct. The lure's twitching often imitates irregular distress patterns rather than smooth motion. The prey believes it is capitalizing on weakness. In reality, it is being harvested by it. Unlike predators that rely on speed to outrun prey, the frogfish relies on prey decision-making errors. The fish must choose to approach. The frogfish provides the illusion of reward. Once within a few centimeters, physics takes over. Suction predation eliminates escape vectors. The frogfish's strike is so rapid that high-speed cameras reveal water displacement forming a vortex funnel into the mouth. The prey's body orientation barely changes before it vanishes. There is no chase sequence, no dramatic struggle. The reef remains calm seconds later, as though nothing occurred. But this system contains an evolutionary gamble. If prey species learn to recognize frogfish lures as threats, the deception collapses. The frogfish's continued success depends on the rarity and variability of its ambush points. Camouflage must remain convincing. The lure must remain believable. Environmental complexity supports the lie. Coral reefs are visually chaotic. Textures vary wildly. Colors shift with depth and light. Within this complexity, the frogfish's irregular body blends seamlessly. Its stillness is its greatest ally. Even predators struggle to locate it. Sharks, groupers, and Moray eels pass within centimeters without detecting the disguised form. The frogfish survives not by strength, but by invisibility layered with bait. Interestingly, some frogfish species can alter their coloration over days or weeks to match new surroundings. Unlike cephalopods, they cannot change instantly, but gradual pigment adjustments allow long-term integration into evolving reef patches. This slow transformation ensures that the illusion remains intact across shifting habitats. Camouflage is not static. It adapts. When night falls, the reef dynamic changes. Nocturnal species emerge, and visual cues alter under low light. Some frogfish reduce lure activity during these hours, relying more on concealment than bait. The strategy shifts according to prey behavior cycles. The predator reads the clock of the reef. There is a chilling purity to this hunting method. The frogfish does not pursue. It does not intimidate. It does not overpower through muscular dominance. It constructs a scenario in which prey self-deliver. From the fish's perspective, The final moments contain no awareness of danger. There is only opportunity, a wriggling meal too good to ignore. Then absence. The closing image is almost absurd in its stillness. A coral head rests on the seafloor, mottled and unremarkable. Above it, a tiny worm flickers lazily. A curious fish approaches. The reef does not erupt in chaos. It simply closes its mouth. The frogfish does not chase its victims. It convinces them to volunteer. The reef does not scatter when it approaches. Small fish continue grazing on algae. Juveniles hover in loose formation above branching coral. Nothing bolts. Nothing panics. The predator drifting toward them does not look urgent. It does not look fast. It looks ornamental. Its fins bloom outward like a floating fan, long translucent spines radiating in elegant arcs. Stripes ripple down its body in bold bands of cream and rust. It moves so slowly it almost seems curious, not hungry. And that is the trap. The lionfish does not hunt by sprinting. It hunts by building a cage out of intimidation. As it nears a cluster of small fish, the pectoral fins spread wider, transforming from decorative frills into sweeping barriers. Each fin curves forward, creating a living wall that narrows the prey's escape routes. The spines are venomous, not designed to stab prey, but to deter retaliation and discourage anything larger from interfering. Their mere presence signals danger. The smaller fish do not perceive a chase. They perceive encroachment. Instead of exploding outward in every direction, the prey begin adjusting position slowly, backing away from the expanding curtain of spines. But the curtain is symmetrical. There is no open flank. The lionfish advances at a glacial pace, maintaining consistent pressure without triggering the full flight response that high-speed predators provoke. This is behavioral manipulation. Most reef fish rely on sudden acceleration to escape predators. That escape reflex activates when a threat approaches rapidly. The lionfish denies them that cue. It approaches just below the panic threshold, compressing space rather than triggering alarm. The prey drift backward, bunching tighter. With each inch forward, the lionfish narrows the corridor. Its head remains steady, eyes locked. Its body undulates minimally, conserving energy. The pectoral fins now form a semicircle. The prey cluster has been shaped, not chased. And then, in a flash that contradicts its slow advance, the lionfish strikes. The mouth opens wide in a swift forward snap, suction drawing in a fish from point-blank range. The attack is brief, decisive, and over before the surrounding prey understand what occurred. The cage collapses. The reef returns to calm. The brilliance of the lionfish strategy lies in timing. By refusing to move quickly during the approach, it keeps prey in a state of ambiguous threat perception. Ambiguity is lethal. If prey flee too early, they waste energy and expose themselves to other predators. If they wait too long, the lionfish closes the gap. The predator operates within that hesitation window. The anatomy of the lionfish reinforces this tactic. Its elongated pectoral fins are not merely aesthetic structures. They are flexible membranes supported by rays that can be angled precisely. By adjusting fin curvature, the lionfish can redirect small fish away from coral crevices and toward open water directly in front of its mouth. The fins become movable walls. Unlike ambush predators that rely on camouflage, lionfish remain conspicuous. Their bold coloration advertises venomous dorsal spines, deterring larger predators from attacking them during the hunt. This defensive assurance allows the lionfish to move openly, unhurried. It hunts in plain sight. There is another subtle layer to the strategy. Observations suggest that lionfish sometimes exhale small jets of water toward prey during the final approach. This directed water flow may further disorient or redirect small fish, nudging them into the center of the fin enclosure. The trap tightens through hydraulics as well as intimidation. The venomous spines themselves are not typically used to kill prey. They serve as protective insurance. Venom glands at the base of each spine deliver painful injections to would-be predators. The lionfish's survival does not depend on speed or concealment, but on confidence. Confidence that nothing larger will risk attacking it during its slow advance. This confidence changes the ecological equation. In regions where lionfish are native, reef species have co-evolved alongside them, recognizing the danger of the striped approach. But in areas where lionfish have become invasive, such as parts of the Atlantic and Caribbean, local prey lack evolutionary memory of this hunting style. They do not instinctively associate the spreading fins with lethal compression. The result is devastating. Without learned avoidance, prey species allow the lionfish to approach dangerously close. Juvenile fish populations decline. Reef balance shifts. The lionfish's method, based entirely on behavioral manipulation rather than speed, proves especially effective in ecosystems unprepared for it. The predator's elegance becomes ecological disruption. Yet, even in native waters, lionfish demonstrate adaptability. Some individuals have been observed coordinating loosely with others, corralling schools into confined spaces where multiple fish can feed sequentially. While not true pack hunters, their proximity can amplify the intimidation effect, creating overlapping fin barriers. The cage expands from one body to several. Unlike sharks or barracudas that rely on explosive power, the lionfish relies on inevitability. It does not chase down fleeing fish across long distances. It selects micro-territories, coral heads, reef edges, shallow slopes, where movement options are already limited. It then reshapes that limited space further with its fins. The hunt is architecture. The prey's fatal error is not slowness. It is misinterpretation. The lionfish's approach does not resemble the kinetic violence typical of predators. It resembles cautious drifting. By the time the prey recalibrate their threat assessment, their escape vector has vanished. The predator has already closed the cage. As twilight descends over the reef, a lionfish hovers near a coral outcrop. Its fins extend gradually, forming a translucent halo. A cluster of small fish backs away, not in panic but in uncertainty. The halo tightens. The water remains deceptively calm. Then a flicker, a gulp. One fish disappears. The rest scatter too late. The lionfish does not win by outrunning prey. It wins by teaching them, one fatal inch at a time, that hesitation is enough. The reef swallows the struggle whole. A flash of silver erupts between coral heads as a small fish tries to reverse direction, but the space behind it is already gone. Jaws clamp down from the darkness of a narrow crevice. The fish thrashes violently, tail beating against stone, water churning in a frenzy of bubbles and sand. But the predator does not pursue into open water. It retreats. With its prey still gripped in needle teeth, the Moray eel reverses into the crack from which it emerged, dragging the fish into the reef's interior. The struggle grows quieter as stone walls close around them. Out in the open, speed would have mattered. In the corridor, it does not. The battlefield has changed. The Moray eel does not win by chasing faster than its prey. It wins by pulling the fight into a prison. Unlike sleek, high-speed hunters that rely on burst acceleration, Moray eels are built for ambush within confined spaces. Their elongated muscular bodies slip effortlessly through labyrinths of coral, rubble, and rock. Their skin lacks scales and is coated in protective mucus, allowing them to squeeze into tight fissures that would shred other fish. The reef is not a backdrop. It is a weapon. Most reef fish depend on agility in open water. Their survival hinges on sudden directional shifts, darting sideways and exploiting three-dimensional space. In narrow rock tunnels, that agility becomes useless. There is no room to pivot, no room to accelerate. The Moray eel understands this geometry. When hunting, it rarely ventures far from its chosen crevice. Only the head protrudes, mouth opening and closing rhythmically in what appears to be aggression, but is actually respiration. Water must be pumped continuously across the gills. To prey fish, that gaping mouth seems threatening, but not always immediately lethal. Many pass within range, misjudging the distance. The strike is short and explosive. Moray jaws snap forward with surprising force, seizing prey by the head or mid-body. But the first bite is not the kill. It is the capture. The eel immediately begins reversing. using its powerful body to anchor itself within the crevice while pulling the prey deeper. And then a second set of jaws emerges. Hidden inside the throat are pharyngeal jaws, a secondary biting apparatus capable of lunging forward independently of the outer jaws. Once the prey is secured in the main mouth, these inner jaws extend, grip, and drag the prey further inward, preventing escape, even if the initial hold loosens. This is a rare mechanism among fish, more commonly associated with certain reptiles. In Moray eels, it compensates for a narrow skull that cannot create strong suction like many other predators. Instead of inhaling prey, the Moray grips and ratchets it inward. Inside the corridor, resistance collapses. The eel twists its body, using the crevice walls as leverage. If the prey is large, the eel may tie its body into a knot, pushing the knot forward along its length to tear flesh or gain purchase. In open water, such twisting would generate drag and instability. In the tight chamber of a reef hole, the walls provide counterforce. The prison amplifies strength. There is an illusion that Moray eels are solitary lurkers, reactive rather than strategic. Yet their positioning reveals calculation. They often select crevices with limited exit routes and good visibility of surrounding territory. The opening must be wide enough for a rapid strike, yet narrow enough to prevent prey from turning once dragged inside. They engineer choke points. Even cooperative hunting has been observed in some species. Moray eels sometimes work alongside groupers, each exploiting different terrain advantages. The grouper flushes prey toward crevices. The eel intercepts within the reef interior. In other cases, the eel chases prey from holes into open water where the grouper waits. But even without partners, the Moray excels at altering context. A fish pursued in open water may have dozens of escape paths. Once dragged into a crack barely wider than its body, it has none. The eel does not overpower prey with superior speed. It removes the variables that speed requires. The concept is simple. Eliminate movement options. Moray vision is not exceptional compared to pelagic hunters, but their sense of smell is highly developed. They detect injured or stressed fish through chemical cues drifting in the current. At night, when visual predators struggle, Morays emerge more boldly, weaving between coral branches in search of scent trails. But even then, they avoid prolonged chases. If prey flees too far into open water, the eel often abandons pursuit. Energy is conserved. The success rate in confined spaces far outweighs that of extended pursuit. This reflects an understanding of terrain advantage embedded in instinct and reinforced by experience. There is also a defensive dimension. By remaining close to crevices, the Moray eel ensures its own escape route. Larger predators may hesitate to insert themselves into narrow coral cracks, where maneuverability is limited. The eel's lair is both feeding chamber and refuge. The prison protects both predator and prey, but only one leaves. The pharyngeal jaws deserve deeper attention. These inner jaws are equipped with sharp teeth and are connected to muscular systems capable of rapid projection. When activated, they lunge forward to seize prey already held in the outer jaws. This mechanism compensates for the eel's inability to create strong suction due to its narrow head shape. Where other fish inhale prey, the Moray pulls it apart from within. This adaptation reveals an evolutionary compromise. A narrow skull allows access to tight spaces but sacrifices suction efficiency. The secondary jaws restore feeding power without sacrificing that narrow profile. The result is a predator optimized for corridor warfare. The reef's architecture shapes its evolution. Unlike lionfish that manipulate behavior in open water, or frogfish that lure prey into striking range, the Moray's strategy begins after the bite. The true kill occurs within stone walls, where thrashing tails cannot generate speed and panic cannot produce distance. In this confined space, physics changes. Water resistance increases in narrow gaps, dampening rapid movement. Prey fins scrape against rock, reducing thrust. The eel's serpentine body, however, is built for compression and flexion in tight quarters. Every thrash of the prey only wedges it more firmly against the rock, allowing the eel to adjust its grip. Escape becomes mechanically impossible. As daylight fades and shadows deepen, the reef takes on a labyrinthine quality. Small fish retreat into coral heads, believing the complexity offers protection. Within one such crevice, a moray waits, head angled slightly upward. A juvenile fish darts too close. The strike is instantaneous. The eel retreats backward, pulling its captive into darkness. The outer reef remains undisturbed. No dramatic chase, no swirling debris cloud, only a vanishing act into stone. Moments later, the eel's head reappears at the entrance, jaws opening and closing calmly as it resumes respiration. The corridor is empty again. The Moray eel does not win in open arenas. It wins by choosing a hallway where nothing can run. The school is perfect. Hundreds of silver bodies move as one, pivoting in synchronized waves, each fish mirroring the next with mathematical precision. From a distance, the formation appears impenetrable. Every individual watches the shimmer of its neighbor's flank, adjusting position in milliseconds to maintain alignment. In this geometry, survival is shared. Then a second shimmer appears inside the pattern. For a split second, it is impossible to tell which flash belongs to the school and which does not. The reflective scales catch the sunlight in identical bursts. The line between predator and prey dissolves into glare. And then, the school explodes. The Barracuda does not crash into the formation with brute force. It slices through it like a mirror fragment, triggering confusion rather than overpowering resistance. Its body is long, rigid, built for sudden acceleration. But the attack is not about chasing the fastest fish. It is about breaking the pattern that keeps them safe. The true weapon is not speed. It is disorder. Barracudas possess highly reflective scales that act like mobile shards of light. In tropical waters where sunlight penetrates in fractured beams, these scales amplify glare. When the Barracuda approaches a dense school of similar-sized fish, its reflective body blends into the flickering chaos of the group's collective shimmer. The predator becomes visual noise. Schooling fish rely heavily on lateral line detection and visual contrast to maintain formation and respond to threats. Sudden directional changes ripple through the group as wave-like signals. But when the Barracuda pierces the formation, its silver flanks mirror the very signals the fish use to stay organized. The school cannot immediately isolate the anomaly. For a heartbeat, the geometry collapses. And in that collapse, individuals separate. Once the tight symmetry fractures, panic spreads. Fish dart in conflicting directions. Some collide. Some attempt to reform the school. The Barracuda does not pursue the fastest runner. It targets the fish that hesitates during the initial burst of confusion. It hunts the mistake. Its body is engineered for this brief window. Powerful tail muscles drive an explosive forward thrust, reaching extraordinary speeds in short bursts. But this acceleration is rarely sustained. Barracudas do not exhaust themselves in prolonged chases. They rely on the fact that once chaos erupts, at least one fish will misjudge its trajectory. The attack is surgical. Long, narrow jaws lined with dagger-like teeth clamp down with precision. The bite is often aimed at mid-body to disable immediate escape propulsion. Within seconds, the strike is complete, and the Barracuda veers away, allowing the rest of the school to scatter and reassemble elsewhere. The predator does not remain inside the turmoil. It withdraws. The brilliance of this strategy lies in timing. The Barracuda rarely attacks a perfectly cohesive school from distance. It positions itself just outside the formation, drifting with minimal movement, studying the flow. It waits for subtle signs of instability, a slight thinning at the edge, a moment when light shifts and the school's synchronization weakens. Then it commits. Unlike predators that rely on camouflage against rocks or sand, the Barracuda uses brightness as camouflage. In open water, there is nowhere to hide physically. Instead, it hides inside the optical confusion of sunlight reflecting off scales. Its invisibility is dynamic. There is another layer to this confusion attack. Barracudas often approach from below or at oblique angles, where the glare from the surface is strongest. The upward reflection from water refracts and distorts shapes, making it harder for fish to resolve distinct silhouettes. In this distorted field, The predator's reflective body merges seamlessly with background flicker. Vision becomes unreliable. Schooling fish evolved to defend against predators like tuna or dolphins that pursue from the outside and rely on overt speed. Against a predator that weaponizes visual similarity, the school's own survival strategy becomes vulnerability. Uniformity makes them predictable. In some regions, juvenile barracudas even integrate temporarily into loose aggregations of other fish species, drifting at the periphery without attacking. This proximity allows them to observe movement patterns and identify the most reactive individuals. Observation precedes eruption. The barracuda's sensory systems are tuned for these bursts. Large eyes provide keen visual acuity in bright waters. The lateral line detects minute vibrations, revealing sudden direction shifts in nearby fish. The predator calculates trajectories in real time, choosing a target not based solely on proximity, but on projected escape angle. It anticipates failure before it happens. But chaos is a double-edged sword. In turbulent feeding frenzies where multiple predators converge, barracudas risk injury from collision or retaliation. This is why many attacks are solitary and swift. The predator enters, extracts one fish, and exits before other hunters converge. Efficiency over excess. The reflective scales that aid hunting also serve defensive purposes. Larger predators often hesitate to strike at a shape that blends so thoroughly into glare. From certain angles, the barracuda's body becomes a streak of light, rather than a defined target. Predator and prey both struggle to lock focus. The ecological impact of this confusion strategy is subtle yet significant. By preying on disorganized individuals, barracudas exert pressure on schooling cohesion. Schools that maintain tighter synchronization reduce vulnerability. Over time, this pressure shapes collective behavior. The predator refines the prey's discipline. Chaos drives adaptation. As the sun lowers toward the horizon, beams slant across open water, scattering reflections in every direction. A school of baitfish forms a living cloud near the surface. Beneath them, a slender shadow drifts almost invisibly. The shadow accelerates. For a fraction of a second, silver merges with silver. The cloud fractures into shards of panic. One fish lags behind, stunned by the sudden collapse of order. The jaws close. Moments later, the water smooths. The school reforms, tighter now, more cautious. The barracuda circles at distance, body gleaming in fractured light. It does not overpower the sea with brute force. It waits for order to break itself. The chase begins before the prey even realizes it has started. There is no explosion of violence, no sudden ambush from shadow, just a shape in the blue that refuses to fall behind. A single tuna locks onto a fleeing sardine near the edge of a shimmering bait cloud, and instead of lunging, instead of striking, it simply matches speed. And then it stays there. At first the sardine accelerates instinctively, muscles firing in frantic bursts. It darts left, then right, attempting to rejoin the safety of the school. But the silver torpedo behind it mirrors every adjustment with mechanical precision. There is no snap of jaws yet. No decisive bite. Only pressure. The predator is not trying to catch. It is trying to endure. Unlike ambush hunters that depend on surprise, tuna are built for relentless pursuit. Their bodies are rigid, streamlined, reinforced for speed not in seconds but in minutes. Crescent-shaped tails carve through water with powerful oscillations, converting muscle contraction into forward thrust with minimal drag. The design is not about sprinting once. It is about sustaining velocity without burning out. The ocean here is open water, far from reefs and hiding crevices. There is nowhere to duck behind coral, nowhere to vanish into stone corridors. Escape depends entirely on stamina. And this is where the balance tilts. The sardine is fast, but its speed comes in short bursts. It relies on anaerobic muscle fibers that deliver explosive acceleration at the cost of rapid fatigue. Each burst floods its tissues with metabolic waste. Its energy reserves begin to drain within moments. The tuna, by contrast, is engineered for endurance. Its muscles are infused with myoglobin, a protein that stores oxygen efficiently. Blood flow is channeled through specialized heat exchange systems that retain warmth, allowing muscle enzymes to function at higher efficiency than surrounding water temperatures would normally permit. In some species, this partial warm-bloodedness gives tuna a metabolic advantage in cooler waters, enabling sustained performance that cold-blooded prey cannot match. This is not a race of speed. It is a race of oxygen management. As seconds stretch into long, punishing moments, the sardine's movements begin to falter. Its darting becomes less sharp. Its trajectory loses symmetry. The tuna remains behind it like a shadow welded in place. No panic, no wasted motion. The predator is waiting for a collapse that has already begun internally. There is a brutal elegance in this method. Instead of gambling everything on a single strike, the tuna applies constant pressure. The prey burns through energy stores attempting to break free, while the tuna operates within a sustainable metabolic zone. The moment the sardine's burst power fades, the gap closes effortlessly. The final bite is almost anticlimactic. A subtle increase in acceleration, a widening of jaws lined with small, sharp teeth. Contact. The pursuit ends not with spectacle, but with inevitability. But the story does not stop with one fish. In open ocean systems, tuna often hunt cooperatively, herding entire schools of small fish into tighter formations near the surface. The school, under attack from multiple angles, compresses instinctively. This compression increases density, making it harder for individuals to slip through gaps. The tighter the school becomes, the more chaotic internal movement grows as fish collide and scramble for space. And within that compressed chaos, exhaustion accelerates. Repeated high-speed bursts, vertical lunges toward the surface, abrupt directional changes, each drains energy reserves. Tuna rotate positions in these group assaults, allowing individuals to recover slightly while others maintain pressure. The prey, by contrast, has no rotation system. Every member of the school is burning fuel simultaneously. Eventually, the school fractures. The misconception is that tuna are simple high-speed predators, relying purely on muscle. But beneath the surface, their physiology reveals a more sophisticated weapon: time. Their cardiovascular systems are highly developed, supporting sustained oxygen delivery to active muscles. Their gills extract oxygen efficiently from moving water at speed. Their heart rates support prolonged exertion that many prey species cannot physiologically match. They weaponize endurance. In deeper waters, tuna sometimes target larger prey such as squid or mackerel. The chase may extend vertically through the water column, forcing prey into thermal layers where temperature shifts affect muscle efficiency. Tuna tolerate these gradients better due to their internal heat retention mechanisms. What appears to be a straightforward chase is often a forced descent into metabolic disadvantage for the prey. The battlefield is not flat. It is layered. There is another layer to this strategy that often goes unnoticed. Tuna are migratory giants, capable of crossing entire ocean basins. Their bodies are built for distance, meaning the line between migration and hunting is blurred. A prey item does not have to be cornered in a confined space. It only has to be weaker over distance. The ocean offers infinite space, but space does not protect against fatigue. As daylight filters through the water, a dense school of anchovies shimmers near the surface. A pack of tuna approaches from below, accelerating upward in coordinated surges. The anchovies scatter outward, then reform instinctively. The tuna do not abandon pursuit when the first attempt fails. They circle, re-engage, and repeat. Each cycle drains strength. Unlike ambush predators that succeed or fail in seconds, tuna hunts unfold as escalating pressure events. The prey may evade one strike, even two, but with every burst of escape, energy is lost. Muscles accumulate metabolic byproducts. Reaction times slow imperceptibly. A fish that could pivot sharply at the beginning of the chase now hesitates by a fraction of a second. That fraction is fatal. There is an evolutionary trade-off here. Prey species evolve for explosive evasion because it works against many predators. But against a hunter that can sustain high velocity for extended periods, explosive escape becomes a liability. It drains reserves too quickly. The tuna does not need to be the fastest at the start. It only needs to remain functional at the end. In open water, where cover is non-existent and distance stretches endlessly, the predator that can wait for collapse holds the advantage. Tuna rarely engage in random frantic chases. Their movements are calculated, energy efficient, designed to convert oxygen and muscle into forward motion with minimal waste. The prey's panic fuels the predator's patience. As the final anchovy in a broken formation begins to slow, the ocean around it seems vast and empty. There is no reef, no shadow, no obstacle, only blue. Behind it, a dark, unwavering shape maintains perfect alignment. The anchovy surges once more, desperate. Its body trembles with the last reserves of anaerobic effort. The tremor becomes a wobble. The wobble becomes a stall. The tuna does not lunge wildly. It closes the final distance smoothly, jaws opening just enough. The bite is precise, efficient, inevitable. It never truly needed to catch. It only needed to wait for the moment when running stopped working. The water looks empty. Sunlight filters through the surface in slow, trembling shafts, illuminating nothing but drifting particles and pale sand below. A juvenile fish darts forward, relaxed, scanning for plankton. There is no shadow, no silhouette, no approaching predator. The sea appears open, harmless. Then the fish convulses. Its body jerks violently mid-swim, as if struck by an invisible wire. Fins flare. Muscles seize. Within seconds, it drifts downward, paralyzed, entangled in something that was never visible until it was already too late. There was no chase, no warning, no pursuit, only contact. The box jellyfish does not hunt by speed or strategy in the traditional sense. It hunts by absence. Its weapon is not aggression, but invisibility so complete that prey cannot form a threat response in time to survive. Unlike most predators that must close distance deliberately, the box jellyfish allows the ocean to deliver victims directly into its grasp. Its bell is almost perfectly transparent, a cube-shaped chamber of near-invisible tissue that refracts light rather than blocking it. Even its tentacles, which can extend for several body lengths, appear as faint threads against the shimmering water. In tropical shallows, where clarity is high and sunlight is intense, transparency becomes lethal camouflage. Prey fish rely heavily on visual contrast to detect danger. Shadows against light, dark shapes against open blue, movement against stillness. The box jellyfish disrupts this entire system. Its body casts minimal shadow. Its edges blur in refracted light. Even its movement is subtle, pulsing gently rather than lunging. There is no dramatic silhouette to trigger flight, but invisibility alone would not be enough. What makes this predator uniquely devastating is what happens upon contact. Each tentacle is lined with thousands of specialized cells known as nematocysts. These microscopic capsules contain coiled harpoons loaded with venom. The trigger mechanism is mechanical and chemical. The moment a prey organism brushes against the tentacle, the nematocysts fire at extraordinary speed, penetrating skin in less than a blink. It is not a bite. It is a detonation. The venom of certain box jellyfish species is among the most potent in the ocean. It targets ion channels in cell membranes, disrupting nerve signals and cardiac function. In small fish, paralysis is nearly instantaneous. Muscles lose coordination. Escape propulsion collapses. The prey does not fight because it cannot. The ocean delivered it into a net it never saw. There is another misconception about jellyfish. They are often imagined as passive drifters, surrendered entirely to currents. Box jellyfish are different. They possess surprisingly sophisticated sensory structures known as rhopalia, which include multiple types of eyes. Some of these eyes detect light intensity, others form crude images. This predator can orient itself. Box jellyfish are capable of directed swimming, pulsing their bell rhythmically to move through coastal waters rather than drifting aimlessly. They patrol mangrove edges, shallow bays, and reef perimeters where juvenile fish concentrate. The invisibility is not accidental positioning. It is guided presence. They choose hunting grounds. In shallow water, light scatters unpredictably across ripples and sand. The jellyfish's transparent body becomes nearly indistinguishable from the water itself. Its tentacles trail beneath the bell like invisible wires suspended in open space. prey fish swim forward into what appears to be emptiness. And here lies the strategic elegance. There is no pursuit phase, no energy-intensive chase, no high-speed collision. The jellyfish's metabolic demand is comparatively low. It does not need to outrun prey. It simply positions itself where prey movement intersects with tentacle radius. Energy conservation becomes predatory advantage, but invisibility also creates risk. The jellyfish itself is fragile. Its gelatinous structure offers little defense against large predators or turbulent surf. To survive, it must balance exposure with concealment. It often inhabits areas with complex light patterns and moderate shelter, where its body dissolves into background distortion. The same invisibility that kills also protects. There is a darker twist to this design. The box jellyfish's venom evolved not merely to subdue prey, but to ensure rapid immobilization in dynamic coastal environments. In shallow water, currents and waves can quickly displace struggling prey. Immediate paralysis prevents escape in moving water. The faster the collapse, the higher the feeding success. Speed is embedded in chemistry, not muscle. Even humans become accidental victims of this invisibility. Swimmers entering tropical waters may never see the drifting tentacles before contact. The same mechanisms that immobilize fish can cause excruciating pain, cardiovascular disruption, and in rare cases, cardiac arrest. The predator does not distinguish intent. Yet the box jellyfish is not a mindless toxin dispenser. It demonstrates behavioral selectivity. Studies indicate it avoids strong sunlight and turbulent surf, adjusting vertical position in the water column. Its eyes detect obstacles such as mangrove roots, allowing it to navigate around them. For a creature with no centralized brain in the vertebrate sense, this coordination is extraordinary. And here comes the reversal. The box jellyfish is not entirely passive once prey is captured. After paralysis, the tentacles contract, drawing the immobilized fish toward the bell. The mouth, located on the underside, opens to ingest the prey. Digestion begins rapidly, converting the victim into energy that fuels continued swimming and reproduction. Invisibility transitions into consumption. At night, when visual predators struggle, the box jellyfish becomes even more formidable. Under low light, its transparency remains effective, while its prey's ability to detect faint edges diminishes further. The absence of warning becomes absolute. Darkness amplifies the cheat. Ecologically, this predatory style shapes coastal fish behavior. Juveniles that inhabit mangrove nurseries face constant invisible threat. Evolution favors individuals that respond to subtle water disturbances or chemical cues rather than relying solely on sight. The presence of a predator that cannot be seen forces prey species to diversify their sensory reliance. Invisibility drives adaptation. The box jellyfish does not dominate through numbers or aggression. It exerts pressure through unpredictability. In ecosystems where visibility defines survival, a predator that removes visibility from the equation becomes uniquely destabilizing. The ocean appears empty. A small fish glides through a sunlit patch near a mangrove root. The water is clear, serene, undisturbed. Suspended in that clarity is a structure so transparent it resembles a trick of light rather than life. The fish continues forward. There is no chase, no fin beat acceleration behind it, no shadow closing in, only a brush against a thread of living glass. The body stiffens. The tail stops. The current carries both predator and prey gently toward shore. The box jellyfish does not pursue. It waits for the sea to make the introduction. Nothing moves on the seafloor. The tide has receded just enough to expose rippled sand and scattered coral rubble in warm, shallow water. Small fish weave between fragments of broken reef. A crab inches sideways across what appears to be a harmless lump of rock. The surface above shimmers peacefully in the sunlight. Then the rock explodes, not in motion outward, but in violence upward. A small fish vanishes in a fraction of a second as a cavernous mouth opens from what seemed like dead stone. There is no pursuit, no build-up, only the brutal consequence of a single misjudged step. The stonefish does not hunt by chasing prey. It hunts by existing. Its body is one of the most convincing illusions in the ocean. Skin textured with ridges, algae-like filaments, irregular bumps, and mottled pigments allows it to dissolve into reef debris so completely that even experienced divers struggle to distinguish it from actual rock. Sand settles across its back. Algae grows along its flanks. Tiny organisms colonize its skin. It does not merely resemble stone. It becomes part of the terrain. Unlike predators that hide behind objects, the stonefish is the object. It rests motionless on the seafloor, supported by thick pectoral fins that anchor it firmly against currents. Its eyes sit high on its head, angled upward, scanning the water column above. Only those eyes betray life, and even they blend into the camouflage pattern. Movement would ruin the illusion, so it waits. Prey fish navigating shallow reefs rely on visual cues to avoid danger. They detect silhouettes, sudden shifts in shape, or the looming presence of a predator in motion. The stonefish offers none of these signals. Its outline is irregular. Its color palette matches coral rubble and sand perfectly. Its shadow is indistinguishable from surrounding objects. The fish above it swim confidently, and when one drifts too close, the strike is instantaneous. The stonefish opens its mouth with explosive suction, creating a vacuum that draws prey inward before it can react. The entire motion lasts less than a heartbeat. There is no chase because distance never existed. The battlefield was chosen long before the encounter began, but camouflage alone does not explain the full extent of this predator's strategy. Along its dorsal ridge, the stonefish carries one of the most potent venom delivery systems among reef fish. Thick, sharp spines stand erect when pressure is applied from above. Each spine is connected to venom glands at its base. When stepped on or compressed, the spines puncture flesh and inject toxin directly into the wound. This venom is not designed for hunting prey. It is designed for punishing mistakes. Predators that attempt to swallow a stonefish, or large animals that accidentally step on it in shallow water, receive an immediate, agonizing injection. The venom contains proteins that disrupt cell membranes, cause intense pain, tissue damage, and in severe cases, systemic effects. It is a defensive minefield embedded in a motionless body. The genius lies in the duality. The same camouflage that enables ambush feeding also invites accidental contact. In an ecosystem crowded with grazers, scavengers, and larger predators, being invisible increases vulnerability to trampling. The venom system solves this vulnerability by transforming the stonefish into a biological landmine. Contact becomes consequence. Here is the twist. The stonefish rarely needs to use its venom offensively. It relies on suction feeding to capture prey. The venom is insurance, not a primary weapon. Yet the mere existence of that insurance allows the fish to remain motionless in exposed positions without fear. It can afford to be passive. In tidal flats and lagoon edges where water depth fluctuates dramatically, the stonefish's strategy becomes even more powerful. During low tide, pools form between coral fragments. Prey fish become concentrated in shrinking spaces. The stonefish positions itself near natural funnels, or slight depressions in the sand, locations where water flow channels movement. It does not pursue prey into these pools. It lets the tide herd them. The body structure of the stonefish reflects this patient design. Its heavy, compressed form keeps it stable against wave action. The skin secretes a thick mucus layer that resists abrasion and discourages parasites. Even its coloration can shift subtly over time to better match local substrate conditions. It adapts to background. Another layer of sophistication lies in its strike mechanics. Suction feeding requires rapid expansion of the mouth cavity. Specialized muscles pull the lower jaw downward while the head lifts slightly, creating negative pressure that pulls water and prey inward. Because the stonefish's mouth opens so wide relative to its body size, even fish nearly half its length can be engulfed. Prey do not see a predator advancing. They see the ground opening beneath them. And yet, the stonefish is not invincible. Larger predators that recognize its shape avoid it. Over evolutionary time, some species have learned to identify subtle cues in texture or eye placement. But in complex reef systems with constant visual noise, perfect detection is impossible. The stonefish exploits this imperfection relentlessly. Mistakes are inevitable. The venom also plays a broader ecological role. Human encounters with stonefish in shallow tropical waters reveal the potency of its defense. Accidental contact can result in immediate, excruciating pain, sometimes requiring medical treatment. This capacity deters many potential threats from disturbing the substrate indiscriminately. The reef learns caution around stillness. Here is the deeper reversal. While many predators invest energy in movement, pursuit, and sensory enhancement, the stonefish invests in stillness. It represents an evolutionary solution where invisibility reduces the need for stamina or speed. Energy expenditure remains minimal. Survival depends on precision positioning and the reliability of camouflage. In a sense, it is the opposite of a sprinter. It is a trap embedded in time. As the afternoon sun lowers and shadows lengthen across the lagoon, small fish continue to weave between rubble. A juvenile wrasser investigates a patch of sand speckled with algae. Beneath it lies a shape indistinguishable from the surrounding stones. The wrasser dips closer. There is no audible cue, no visible warning. The sand does not shift. The water does not ripple unnaturally. The mouth opens, and just as quickly, it closes. The seafloor returns to stillness. The shape resumes its illusion. The dorsal spines remain folded unless compressed, silent and waiting. The stonefish does not chase. It does not intimidate. It does not announce. It simply waits for the moment when something touches what should not be touched. In a world of speed and spectacle, it survives by punishing error the instant it happens. The predator commits to the bite. A reef shark glides in from the edge of a coral slope, its body language shifting from patrol to precision. Ahead of it, a small rounded fish hovers clumsily above the sand. It does not sprint. It does not dive into coral. It appears slow, exposed, easy. The shark accelerates, and in the instant before contact, the prey transforms. The small fish swells outward like a detonating balloon. Its body expands into a near-perfect sphere, spines erupting across its skin, turning soft flesh into a bristling mace. The shark veers off at the last moment, jaws closing on water instead of meat. The target is no longer edible. The pufferfish does not escape by outrunning predators. It escapes by rewriting the rules of engagement in a single second. Under normal conditions, the pufferfish appears unimpressive. Its swimming is awkward, driven by small oscillations of dorsal and pectoral fins rather than powerful tail strokes. It lacks the streamlined elegance of tuna or the explosive acceleration of Barracuda. Its body shape seems almost comical, rounded and slow, but that softness is deception. The pufferfish carries a highly elastic stomach capable of extraordinary expansion. When threatened, it rapidly gulps water, pumping it into the stomach cavity. Specialized folds in the stomach wall unfold like pleats in fabric, allowing the organ to expand to several times its resting volume. The process is almost instantaneous. Size multiplies. As the body inflates, what were previously flattened dermal spines rotate outward. In a relaxed state, these spines lie close against the skin, barely noticeable. Inflation forces them to stand erect, transforming the fish into a floating sphere covered in sharp points. The geometry shifts from prey size to predator problem. Most predators calculate risk in fractions of seconds. Mouth gape size determines whether a prey item can be swallowed. Jaw strength determines handling time. The pufferfish exploits this calculation window. By expanding its body beyond the predator's safe bite capacity, it forces hesitation. Hesitation is survival. But there is more beneath the surface. Inflation alone would not be enough against determined predators capable of biting through spines. The pufferfish carries an additional layer of defense. Tetrodotoxin, one of the most potent neurotoxins found in marine ecosystems. This toxin accumulates in the fish's tissues, particularly in the liver, skin, and reproductive organs. Consumption becomes dangerous. Tetrodotoxin blocks sodium channels in nerve cells, preventing electrical impulses from transmitting properly. In predators that ingest a pufferfish, even small amounts can cause paralysis. In some cases, it can be fatal. The toxin does not originate entirely within the fish itself. It is believed to be produced by symbiotic bacteria and accumulated through diet. The pufferfish is both biological and microbial in its defense. Here lies the twist. The pufferfish is not aggressive. It does not attack. It does not chase. It survives by turning itself into something unmanageable and toxic at the precise moment of vulnerability. It weaponizes perception. Before inflation, the fish appears like an easy meal. After inflation, it becomes a floating hazard. The transformation is so dramatic that it alters predator behavior permanently. Sharks and large reef fish that attempt to bite inflated puffers often learn quickly to avoid that shape in the future. The memory of discomfort spreads through the ecosystem. Inflation, however, carries cost. Swallowing water rapidly can disrupt buoyancy control. If the pufferfish is unable to expel the water efficiently, it risks becoming unstable in strong currents. In extreme cases, improper inflation outside of water can lead to injury. The defense is powerful, but not without risk. This balance reveals evolutionary trade-offs. Instead of investing in speed or camouflage, the pufferfish invests in deterrence. It accepts temporary immobility during inflation because the payoff is survival through intimidation and toxicity. From prey to threat in less than a breath. In shallow reef flats, where ambush predators lurk among coral heads, this strategy proves especially effective. A grouper lunges at a juvenile puffer, expecting a swift capture. Instead, it finds its mouth obstructed by a spiked sphere too large to swallow. The grouper recoils, reconsidering the cost-benefit ratio of further attempts. The puffer floats, swollen and defiant. Over time, the ability to inflate has shaped predator-prey dynamics in coral systems. Predators that specialize in hard-shelled or spiny prey develop stronger jaws and more precise biting techniques. Some species learn to attack puffers before they fully inflate, targeting softer areas. But the inflation response remains one of the most dramatic reversals in marine defense. What appears fragile becomes formidable. There is another subtle dimension to the strategy. The rounded shape of an inflated puffer increases drag dramatically, making swift pursuit impossible. But because inflation is triggered at close range, pursuit is no longer necessary. The threat has already been neutralized. The puffer's objective is not to continue fleeing. It is to end the chase. The ecological consequence extends further. Puffers are not purely defensive animals. Many species feed on hard-shelled invertebrates, using strong beak-like teeth to crush crustaceans and mollusks. Their defensive strategy allows them to forage in exposed areas where other small fish might be too vulnerable. Defense enables bold feeding. As dusk settles over the reef, a young puffer grazes along the substrate, nibbling at small invertebrates embedded in coral rubble. A shadow approaches from behind, swift and silent. The predator calculates distance. The puffer senses vibration. Water floods into its stomach. The body expands outward, spines rising like a field of spears. The predator halts mid-strike, mouth open but uncertain. The opportunity evaporates. Slowly, cautiously, the puffer releases water and returns to its compact form, resuming its quiet grazing as if nothing happened. It did not outrun danger. It did not hide. It simply became something too costly to eat. In an ocean defined by pursuit and escape, the pufferfish survives by transforming vulnerability into immediate deterrence, turning the predator's confidence into doubt in a single, swelling instant. The kill is already decided before the fight even begins. A wounded fish struggles near the edge of a tidal pool, sides heaving, scales torn from an earlier escape. It is not alone. From beneath a ledge of rock, a pair of stalked eyes rise slowly, calculating. There is no rush, no dramatic lunge, just patience. The crab is not looking for a fair contest. It is looking for weakness. In the complex architecture of reefs, mangroves, and intertidal flats, crabs occupy a niche that is neither pure predator nor simple scavenger. They are opportunists in the truest evolutionary sense. They do not expend energy chasing the fastest prey or competing head-to-head with apex hunters. They watch. They assess. They move only when probability is in their favor. Energy economy is their strategy. The crab's sideways gait is not clumsiness but structural efficiency. Its body is flattened and armored, built for squeezing into crevices and anchoring against waves. The claws, or chelae, are not symmetrical in many species. One may be larger, specialized for crushing shells, the other more delicate, designed for precision handling. This asymmetry reveals its role in the ecosystem. It does not overpower large prey. It dismantles what is already compromised. When a fish becomes trapped in a shallow pool as the tide retreats, its oxygen levels drop and its movement slows. A crab senses this, not through sight alone, but through vibrations transmitted through water and substrate. The lateral motion of its antennae and fine sensory hairs detect chemical cues released by stressed tissue. Injury has a signature, and the crab responds. It advances cautiously, claws poised. The first grip is often not fatal. It seizes a fin or exposed flesh, testing resistance. If the prey thrashes violently and regains footing, the crab retreats instantly. It does not escalate unnecessarily. But if the movement falters, the crab tightens its hold. It commits only when collapse is evident. This is not laziness. It is strategic restraint. Hunting carries risk. A healthy fish can injure a crab with a powerful tail strike. Larger predators may intervene during a prolonged struggle. By targeting the weak, the trapped, or the dying, the crab minimizes exposure. Survival favors caution. Yet crabs are not merely scavengers feeding on leftovers. Many species actively create opportunities. In dense mussel beds, a crab may pry open shells, exploiting small gaps caused by wave action. In coral rubble, it uses its claws to overturn fragments, flushing out small invertebrates. It engineers vulnerability. The mechanical strength of a crab's claw can be extraordinary relative to its body size. Crushing species generate force sufficient to crack shells many times harder than their own exoskeleton, but they rarely attempt to overpower robust, mobile prey in open water. Instead, they apply force where resistance is already reduced. Timing over dominance. The ecological role of the crab is therefore deeply intertwined with other predators. When a barracuda injures a fish but fails to consume it entirely, fragments drift downward. Crabs emerge from crevices to seize what remains. When a seabird drops a damaged mollusk onto rocks, crabs gather to exploit the aftermath. They harvest the chaos created by others. Here lies the twist. This opportunism stabilizes ecosystems. By consuming weakened individuals and organic debris, crabs reduce the spread of disease and recycle nutrients back into the food web. What appears as ruthless exploitation becomes ecological sanitation. Efficiency becomes balance. But opportunism can also look brutal. In tidal zones where waves isolate prey in shrinking pools, crabs may swarm collectively. Each individual tests the boundaries of safety. Once a target's weakness becomes obvious, multiple crabs converge, tearing flesh in coordinated feeding frenzies. The prey does not stand a chance. And yet, the crabs do not waste energy fighting each other excessively during such events. Hierarchies often emerge based on size and claw strength. Larger individuals dominate access, while smaller ones wait for fragments. Conflict is minimized because energy is precious in fluctuating tidal environments. Competition is measured, not reckless. Crabs also exploit molting cycles in other crustaceans. When a neighboring crab sheds its exoskeleton to grow, its body becomes temporarily soft and defenseless. Opportunistic species patrol during these vulnerable windows, ready to seize a freshly molted individual before its shell hardens. They understand timing instinctively. The anatomy of the crab supports this strategy. Compound eyes on movable stalks provide a wide field of vision, allowing the animal to scan nearly all directions without shifting its body. This vigilance reduces the risk of surprise attack while it feeds. The hard carapace shields vital organs, permitting calculated forays into contested spaces. Protection enables boldness when advantage is clear. Unlike pursuit predators that rely on explosive speed, the crab's strength lies in persistence and probability assessment. It waits in burrows near feeding grounds. It monitors tides and currents. It tests prey before committing to full engagement. It chooses the moment. As night falls over a mangrove forest, the waterline recedes, exposing mudflats rich with life. A small fish, stranded in a shallow depression, gasps as oxygen levels drop. From multiple burrows, crabs emerge, drawn by chemical cues and subtle water vibrations. They approach in arcs, claws extended. The first crab grips the tail. The fish thrashes weakly. A second seizes the gill area. The struggle is brief. Once resistance fades, the crabs begin tearing the body apart, each piece carried back toward shelter. There was no dramatic hunt, no long chase, only calculation. The crab wins not by overpowering the strongest competitor, but by avoiding that contest entirely. It survives by identifying weakness, by recognizing trapped conditions, by exploiting injury and exhaustion rather than creating it from scratch. In an ocean defined by speed and spectacle, the crab represents a quieter force. It is the predator of mistakes, the harvester of vulnerability, the silent accountant of energy expenditure. It does not need to be the fastest. It only needs to arrive when resistance is already broken. The reef has fallen silent. Where branching corals once formed intricate cathedrals of shelter, there is now only rock, scraped clean, pale and exposed. Fish hover at the edges, reluctant to enter. Predators circle, then turn away. The ground itself has become hostile. Across the seafloor stretches a living minefield. Thousands of black spines sway gently in the current, each attached to a spherical body barely visible beneath them. No creature lunges, no jaws snap. Yet the space is controlled, defended, and effectively conquered. The sea urchin does not chase. It does not threaten. It dominates by transforming habitat into hazard. Each sea urchin appears simple at first glance, a rounded shell or test covered in movable spines. But that apparent simplicity hides a profound ecological power. The spines are not static armor. They articulate in coordinated waves, controlled by a hydraulic system of tube feet and muscles that allow the animal to respond instantly to touch. Approach too closely, and the spines pivot toward contact. Many species carry additional defenses, small pincer-like structures known as pedicellariae, capable of delivering venom or grasping at potential threats. Even without venom, the mechanical barrier created by dense spines deters most predators from biting. The cost of attack outweighs the reward. But the true domination of the sea urchin is not in individual defense. It is in numbers. Under certain ecological conditions, especially when natural predators decline, sea urchin populations explode. They graze relentlessly on algae, scraping rock surfaces clean with a specialized feeding apparatus called Aristotle's lantern, a complex arrangement of 5 teeth capable of grinding through tough plant matter and even coral skeleton. They do not move quickly. They do not need to. As they feed, they remove the very foundation upon which reef ecosystems depend. Algae disappears. Coral recruits struggle to settle. Complex habitat degrades into flat rock. The reef becomes an urchin barrens. In these barrens, biodiversity plummets. Fish that depend on coral shelter abandon the area. Large predators find little incentive to patrol. What remains is a carpet of spines, a passive but absolute occupation of space. The sea urchin wins without pursuit. This is the twist. The urchin is not actively hunting other animals. It is reshaping the environment in a way that excludes competitors and discourages predators. By overgrazing vegetation and reducing structural complexity, it converts vibrant reef into defensive terrain optimized for its own survival. It turns habitat into shield. Predators that specialize in cracking hard prey, such as certain triggerfish or sea otters in other regions, can control urchin populations. But when those predators decline due to overfishing or environmental disruption, urchins flourish unchecked. The balance tips dramatically. Passive defense becomes ecological dominance. The anatomy of the sea urchin reveals why this strategy works so effectively. The test is constructed of interlocking calcareous plates, forming a rigid sphere capable of distributing force. Spines attach via ball and socket joints, allowing flexible movement while maintaining structural integrity. Even if some spines are lost to predation, they regenerate over time. Damage is temporary. The tube feet, extending between spines, serve not only for locomotion, but for adhesion. Urchins can anchor themselves firmly to rock surfaces, resisting strong currents and wave surge. This anchoring ensures they remain embedded within the territory they have cleared. They do not need speed. They need persistence, and persistence scales. When hundreds or thousands of urchins cluster across a reef flat, their combined grazing pressure becomes transformative. Coral larvae attempting to settle find no safe substrate. Juvenile fish seeking refuge encounter only spikes. Larger predators surveying the area perceive little opportunity. Avoidance sets in. The reef shifts from a multi-layered ecosystem to a simplified expanse of rock and spines. What was once a feeding ground becomes a deterrent zone. The urchins have not chased anything away. They have made the area inhospitable. The battlefield changes without movement. There is another subtle layer to this domination. By removing algae and competing organisms, urchins reduce shade and alter microhabitats. Some species even bore into rock over time, deepening crevices that further protect them from dislodgement. Their feeding is both destructive and constructive. They carve space to fit themselves. At night, when many predators are less active, urchins often emerge more visibly, extending tube feet and shifting slightly to access new grazing areas. During daylight, they cluster tightly in crevices, spines outward, presenting an impenetrable defensive front. The formation itself becomes intimidation. Here lies the deeper reversal. The sea urchin is physically slow and individually vulnerable to specialized predators. Yet collectively, it exerts control over landscapes far larger than its body size suggests. Its power lies not in aggression, but in altering ecological feedback loops. When predators vanish, urchins expand. When urchins expand, habitat simplifies. When habitat simplifies, predators struggle to return. A feedback spiral unfolds. In some regions, the reintroduction or recovery of predators has led to dramatic reversals of urchin barrens, allowing kelp forests or coral systems to regenerate. This reveals that the sea urchin's dominance is conditional, powerful, but dependent on the absence of checks. Stillness becomes strategy only in imbalance. Yet within that imbalance, the effect is undeniable. A diver descending onto an urchin-dominated reef encounters a landscape that feels hostile. Every surface bristles. Foot placement becomes cautious. Fish density drops. The water column feels emptier. The spikes dictate behavior. No pursuit occurs. No dramatic hunt unfolds. But space is claimed and defended by sheer presence. As currents sweep gently across the barren reef, thousands of spines sway in unison, each urchin anchored firmly in place. Predatory fish hover at the perimeter, uninterested. Smaller fish skirt the edges, unwilling to navigate the forest of needles. The sea urchin does not advance. It does not retreat. It waits. And in waiting, in grazing, in multiplying, it converts complexity into control. It punishes intrusion through contact, deters predation through density, and reshapes ecosystems simply by existing in overwhelming numbers. It wins without moving. The reef has fallen silent not because something hunted it away, but because the ground itself became untouchable.